Rule 6, Pitching. Section 1, Pitching. Article 1. The pitcher shall pitch while facing the batter from either a wind-up position or a set position. The position of his feet determine whether he will pitch from the wind-up or the set position. He shall take his sign from the catcher with his pivot foot in contact with the pitcher's plate. The pitching regulations begin when he intentionally contacts the pitcher's plate. Turning the shoulders to check on runners while in contact with the pitcher's plate in the set position is legal. Turning the shoulders after bringing the hands together during or after the stretch is a balk. He shall not make a quick return pitch and attempt to catch a batter off balance. The catcher shall have both feet in the catcher's box at the time of the pitch. If a pitcher is ambidextrous, the umpire shall require the pitcher to face a batter as either a left-handed pitcher or a right-handed pitcher, but not both. Article 2. For the wind-up position, the pitcher is not restricted as to how he shall hold the ball. A pitcher assumes the wind-up pitching when his hands are A. together in front of his body, B. both hands are at his side, C. either hand is in front of the body and the other hand is at his side. The pitcher's non-pivot foot shall be in any position on or behind a line extending through the front edge of the pitcher's plate. He is limited to not more than 2 pumps or rotations. After he starts his movement to pitch, he must continue the motion without interruption or alteration. With his feet in the wind-up position, the pitcher may only deliver a pitch or step backward off the pitcher's plate with his pivot foot first. After the pitcher has placed his pivot foot clearly behind the base, he has the right to change to the set position or throw or feint to a base the same as that of any fielder. During delivery, he may lift his non-pivot foot in a step forward, a step sideways, or a step backwards, and a step forward, but he shall not otherwise lift either foot. Article 3. For the set position, the pitcher shall have the ball in either his gloved hand or his pitching hand. His pitching hand shall be down at his side or behind his back. Before starting his delivery, he shall stand with his entire non-pivot foot in the front of a line extending through the front edge of the pitcher's plate and with his pivot foot in contact or directly in front of and parallel to the pitcher's plate. He shall go to the set position without interruption and in one continuous motion. He shall come to a complete and discernible stop. A change of direction is not considered an acceptable stop. With the ball in both hands in front of his body and his glove at or below his chin. Natural preliminary motions such as only one stretch may be made. During these preliminary motions and during the set position until a delivery motion occurs, the pitcher may turn on his pivot foot or lift it in a jump turn to step with the non-pivot foot towards a base while throwing or feinting as outlined in 624 and 228.5. Or he may lift his pivot foot in a step backwards off the pitcher's plate, which he must be in or partially within the 24-inch length of the pitcher's plate. In order to change to the wind-up pitcher position, he must first step clearly backwards off the pitcher's plate with his pivot foot first. After the pitcher has placed his pivot foot on the ground clearly behind the plate, he then has the right to throw or feint to a base, the same as if that of any other infielder. Penalty. For Articles 1, 2, and 3, the ball is dead immediately when an illegal pitch occurs. If there is no runner, a ball is awarded to the batter. If there is a runner, such an illegal act is a balk, and in both situations, the umpire signals dead ball. Article 4. Each pitch shall be declared by the umpire as a strike, ball, fair, or foul hit, or dead ball. A pitch dropped during delivery which crosses a foul line shall be called a ball. Otherwise, it will be called no pitch. A pitch dropped during delivery with at least one runner on base would be a balk if it does not cross the foul line. Article 5. When a pitcher is attempting to field a batted, thrown ball or is throwing to a base while his pivot foot is clearly off the plate, his status is that of an infielder, except that if a batted ball passes but does not touch him and then strikes an umpire or a runner, the ball may become dead because of interference. Article 6. Each state association shall have a pitching restriction policy based on the number of pitches thrown to afford pitchers a required rest period between pitching appearances. Section 2. Infractions by the pitcher. Illegal acts include A. Applying a foreign substance to the ball, B. Spitting on the ball or glove, C. Rubbing the ball on the glove, clothing, or person if the act defaces the ball, D. Discoloring the ball with dirt, E. Bringing the pitching hand in contact with the mouth without distinctly wiping off the pitching hand before it touches the ball, F. Wearing any items on the hands, wrists, or arms that may be distracting to the batter, G. Wearing or placing tape, bandages, or other foreign material other than rosin on the fingers or palm of his pitching hand that could come in contact with the ball. H. Wearing a glove or mitt that includes the colors white or gray. I. Wearing exposed undershirt sleeves that are white or gray. Note, under umpire supervision, the pitcher may dry his hands by using a finely meshed cloth bag of powdered rosin. He may rub the ball with his bare hands to remove any extraneous coating. Penalty. For defacing the ball is dead immediately. The umpire may eject the pitcher. If such defaced ball is pitched and then detected, it is an illegal pitch. For infraction E, a ball is awarded for each time the pitcher violates this rule and subsequently engages the pitching plate. For infraction F through I, the infraction must be corrected before the next pitch. In F, the umpire has the sole authority to judge whether or not an item is distracting and shall have that item removed. Article 2. Delay of game includes A. Throwing to any player other than the catcher when the batter is in the batter's box unless it is an attempt to retire a runner. Penalty. The pitcher shall be ejected from the game after a warning. B. Consuming time as a result of the coach or his representative conferring with the defensive players or players after being charged with 3 conferences. Penalty. The pitcher shall be replaced as the pitcher for the duration of the game. C. Failing to pitch or make an attempted play, including a legal feint, within 20 seconds after he has received the ball. Penalty. The batter shall be awarded a ball. Note, umpires shall require that the ball return promptly to the pitcher. Exception. The starting pitchers may warm up by using not more than 8 throws completed in 1 minute, timed from the first throw. When a pitcher is replaced during an inning or prior to an inning, the relief pitcher may not use more than 8 throws completed in 1 minute, timed from the first throw. At the beginning of each subsequent inning, the pitcher may warm up by using not more than 5 throws completed in 1 minute, timed from the third out of the previous half inning. In either case, the umpire-in-chief may authorize more throws because of an injury, ejection, or inclement weather. Article 3. Intentionally pitch too close to the batter. The penalty. The pitcher shall be ejected if the act is judged to be intentional. In case of doubt, the umpire may warn the pitcher first. Article 4, balk. If there is a runner or runners, any of the following acts by the pitcher while he is touching the pitcher's plate is a balk. Any feinting towards the batter or first base or dropping of the ball, even though it was accidental, and the ball does not cross the foul line. B. Failing to step with the non-pivot foot directly towards a base, occupied or unoccupied. When throwing or feinting, therein is an attempt to put out or to drive back a runner, or throwing or feinting to an unoccupied base when it is not an attempt to put out or drive back a runner. C. Making an illegal pitch from any position. D. Failing to pitch to the batter in a continuous motion immediately after any movement of any part of the body such as he habitually uses in his delivery. 1. If the pitcher with a runner on base stops or hesitates in his delivery because the batter steps out of the box, A, with one foot, or B, with both feet, or C, holds up his hands to request time, it shall not be a balk. In A and C, there is no penalty on either the batter or the pitcher. The umpire shall call time and begin play anew. In B, a strike will be called on the batter for violation of 731. In A, B, and C, if the pitcher legally delivers the ball, it shall be called a strike and the ball remains live. Thus, 2 strikes are called on the batter. In B, if the umpire judges the batter's action to be deliberate attempt to create a balk, he will penalize according to 331N. E. Taking a hand off the ball while in the set position, unless he pitches to the batter or throws to a base, or he steps towards and feints a throw to the second or third base, as in B. Or F. Failing to pitch to the batter when the entire non-pivot foot passes behind the perpendicular plane of the back edge of the pitcher's plate, except when feinting or throwing to second base in an attempt to put out a runner. Article 5. It is also a balk if a runner or runners who are on base and the pitcher, while he is not touching the pitcher's plate, makes any movement naturally associated with his pitch, or he places his feet on or astride the pitcher's plate, or positions himself within approximately 5 feet of the pitcher's plate without having the ball. Rule 6. Pitching. Pitcher requirements. Rule 611. Situation A. F1 pitches with the toe of his pivot foot, right foot for a right-handed pitcher, in contact with the pitcher's plate, but his heel is outside the line through the edge of the plate. He pitches from A, a wind-up position, or B, the set position. Ruling. Legal in A and B, provided that F1's pivot foot is parallel to the pitcher's plate. Situation B. With R3 on third, B2 has 3 balls and 2 strikes. F1 balks, but then delivers the pitch. The pitch is over F2's head. B2A swings at it, or B does not swing. In either case, R3 goes home. Ruling. The ball is dead immediately when the balk occurs, and the balk penalty is enforced. Situation C. When is a pitch a ball even though it goes through the strike zone? Ruling. An illegal pitch, such as pitching with the pivot foot off the pitcher's plate, is a ball if there is no runner on base. If a pitch that hits the ground and then bounces through the strike zone, it is a ball unless the batter strikes at it. Situation D. F1 takes his sign in the A, wind-up position, or B, set position. R3 at third attempts to steal home. F1 steps forward off the pitcher's plate and throws to F2. Ruling. This is a balk in A and B. Comment. After assuming a wind-up or set position stance on the plate, The pitcher must step clearly backward off the plate with the pivot foot in order to play on R3 at the plate. Situation E. With the bases loaded, F1 pitches from the wind-up position. After F1 intentionally contacts the pitcher's plate, he A. fakes a throw to first, or B. steps forward off the pitcher's plate. Ruling. This is a balk in A and B. F1 must step clearly backward off the pitcher's plate with his pivot foot first to disengage the pitcher's plate to make a play. The umpire shall declare the ball dead immediately when this infraction occurs. Situation F. Switch hitting B1 steps in against ambidextrous F1. B1 assumes a position in the batter's box as a left-handed hitter, prompting F1 to prepare the pitch left-handed. B1 quickly changes to the other batter's box to bat right-handed. F1 then switches to pitch right-handed. How is this prevented? Ruling. The umpire shall call time and require the pitcher to face B1 as either a left-handed hander or a right-hander, but not both. Only after B1 is put out, reaches base, or replaced by a substitute, or a third out ends the inning, may F1 change to the other hand to face the next batter. Situation G. The bases are loaded. F1, while on the pitcher's plate, A. fakes a throw to first while in the wind-up position, or B. from the set position prior to the beginning of a stretch, turns his shoulders and glances at the runner. Ruling. In A, this would be a balk. In B, is legal. Situation H. From the set position, F1, while in the stretch, slowly brings his hands to his belt and then delivers the pitch. Ruling. Unless F1 game to a complete stop, one that is clearly recognizable, he has committed a balk. Situation I. When is a pitcher permitted to step backward off the pitching plate in the wind-up position stance and the set position? Ruling. The pitcher can legally step backward off the pitcher's plate in the wind-up position stance at any time prior to the start of any motion indicating the start of the wind-up. While in the set position stance, he may step backward off the pitcher's plate prior to the start of the pitch. Situation J. With R1 on first base, F1 from the set position and prior to bringing his hands together while in contact with the pitcher's plate, A. abruptly and quickly turns his shoulders towards first base in an attempt to drive back the runner, or B. casually turns his shoulder to observe the runner at first base. Ruling. Legal in both A and B. The wind-up. Rule 612. Situation A. With no runners on base, F1 starts his wind-up or preliminary motion and the ball slips from his hand. Ruling. There is no infraction provided F1 delivers a pitch within 20 seconds after he received the ball. If F1 fails to do so, the batter is awarded a ball. If there had been a runner or runners on base, dropping the ball while in contact with the plate is a balk, if the ball did not cross the foul line. Each runner shall be awarded one base. Situation B. What is meant by a pump or rotation? Ruling. A pump or rotation is a movement of the arms by the pitcher when the wind-up position or immediately prior to delivering a pitch to the batter. The pump is an alternate downward and upward motion of the arms, generally terminated by placing both hands together. A rotation is a circular movement of the pitcher's arm immediately prior to delivery to the batter during the wind-up position. The rules limit the pitcher to not more than 2 pumps or rotation when using the wind-up position. Situation C. With a runner on third base, F1 steps on the pitcher's plate in the wind-up position and his glove hand in front of his body and his pitching hand at his side. A. Immediately brings his hands together for the purpose of taking the sign but does not begin his delivery. Or B. Gets the sign, then brings his hands together and stops before delivering the pitch. Or C. Gets the sign, brings his hands together, and continues his pitching motion. Ruling. In A, B, and C, these are all legal moves. Situation D. F1 while on the pitcher's plate in either the wind-up or set position. A. Adjusts his cap, or B. Shakes off the signal with his glove, or C. Shakes off the signal with his head. Ruling. In A through C, these are legal actions if these movements of the arms and legs are not associated with the pitch. Situation E. With the bases loaded, F1 steps on the pitcher's plate in the wind-up position with the ball in his glove hand in front of his body and his pitching hand at his side. F1 then brings his pitching hand to glove and adjusts the ball after receiving the sign from the catcher. He then A. delivers the pitch, B. steps back off the pitcher's plate with his pivot foot. Ruling. Legal in A and B. Situation F. With R3 on third base, F1 steps on the pitcher's plate and his hands are already together in front of his body. F1 drops his pitching hand to his side and stops. Ruling. This is a balk and R3 is awarded home. F1 separated his hands without delivering the pitch. Situation G. From the wind-up position, F1 steps onto the pitcher's plate with both hands together. As he moves his non-pivot foot leg behind the pitcher's plate, he completely stops his motion. Ruling. Balk. This is an illegal pitch. Situation H. F1, with both arms at his side in the wind-up position, first moves his glove to a position in front of his chest, stops his momentum, and then moves his pitching hand into the glove. Ruling. This is legal. Situation I. With one hand at his side and the other hand in front of his body, F1 looks into the catcher for a sign from the wind-up position. He then brings his hands together and pauses. The opposing coach yells that this is a balk and that the runner on third base should score. Ruling. This is not a balk. This is a legal pitching position. The pitcher is permitted to have one hand forward prior to bring the other hand forward. Set position. Rule 613, Situation A. F1 takes the set position with his pivot foot entirely in front of and parallel with the pitcher's plate. F1's non-pivot foot is entirely in front of his pivot foot towards home plate, but is not within the plane of each end of the pitcher's plate. Ruling. This is legal, since only part of the pivot foot is required to be parallel with the pitcher's plate, within the plane of each end of the pitcher's plate, and in contact with it. The non-pivot foot is required to be entirely in front of the front plane of the pitcher's plate, but does not have to be within the plane of each end of the pitcher's plate. Situation B. F1 is in the set position and the heel of the pivot foot is in contact with the pitcher's plate. The rest of the pivot foot is on an angle towards home plate. Ruling. Illegal. The pivot foot is required to be parallel to the pitcher's plate in the last legal set position. Situation C. Left-handed F1 assumes a set position with R run on first. F1 steps back off the pitcher's plate with his pivot foot and throws to first base without stepping to the base. Ruling. This is legal, provided F1's pivot foot touches the ground prior to separating his hands. Situation D. With R1 at first, F1, while in the set position, takes his sign with the ball in his glove and his pitching hand at his side or behind his back. As he begins his stretch, before he is set, F2 changes sign and F1A stops without stepping backward off the pitcher's plate. B steps backward off the pitcher's plate and stops. Ruling. This is a balk in A. F1 must come set without interruption and in one continuous motion. This is legal in B. Situation E. With R1 on first, F1 in the set position stance with the ball in his gloved hand and his pitching hand at his side takes his sign. He removes the ball from his glove and goes to the set position. Ruling. This is a balk. Situation F. With R1 on first, F1 receives the ball from F2 and with his feet in set position stance and in contact with the pitcher's plate, A. nervously tosses the ball and glove 2 or 3 times. B. removes the ball from his glove. Ruling. This is a balk in A and B. Restrictions on F1's movements begin when he intentionally contacts the pitcher's plate with his pivot foot. Situation G. With R2 on second, A. F1 stretches and comes to a stop, or B. He stretches a second time and comes to a stop. In both A and B, he then steps towards third and throws there in an effort to put out R2, who is attempting to steal. Ruling. Legal in A, provided F1 did not start a pitch after coming set. In B, the umpire should declare the ball dead as soon as the second stretch occurs. R2 is awarded third on a balk by F1. Situation F. With R1 on first, F1 is in the set position in a wide stance. He lifts his non-pivot foot to shorten his stance, then returns to his wide stance. A. during his stretch and before his stop, or B. after his stop. This is legal in A, but is a balk in B. If the non-pivot foot is lifted after the stop, he must immediately pitch or step directly towards base and throw to the bat base. Situation I. With R1 on first, F1 is in set position. He stretches his arms and, without stopping, steps towards and throws to first. Ruling. This is legal. Stopping is required only before a pitch. Situation J. R2 is on second. From the set position, F1 uses a jump turn. He comes down astride his plate with his non-pivot foot towards second base and throws or feints there. Ruling. Legal. Comment. F1's pivot foot shall contact the ground before he releases the ball. Situation K. Does a quick pitch or other illegal pitch always result in a ball being called? Ruling. Not always. If there is a runner, it is a balk and no ball is called. Situation L. With R3 on third, F1 assumes his wind-up position and takes his sign from the catcher. He now desires to pitch from the set position. Ruling. It is legal for F1 to assume his wind-up position, then change to the set position. After he assumes either position, he must step backwards from the plate with his pivot foot first to become an infielder, before again assuming either pitching position. As long as F1 has not made a preliminary motion, he may step backward off the pitcher's plate. Situation M. R2 on second base. F1, a right-handed pitcher, assumes the set position stance as a left-handed pitcher to keep R2 close. Ruling. Balk. The pitcher's pivot foot is his right foot, since he is right-handed. If he takes the pitcher's plate with the left foot, he is in violation of the rules. Situation N. With the bases loaded, F1 takes the set position with the ball in both hands in front of his body and comes to a complete stop with the glove over his head. Ruling: this is not legal. This is a balk. F1 must come to a complete stop with his glove at or below his chin. Situation O. With R3 at third and R1 at first, F1 comes to a complete stop with his glove partially above his chin. Is this legal? Ruling: this is legal. Situation P. With R3 at third and R1 at first, F1 is in contact with the pitcher's plate but has not yet come set. He brings his pitching hand to his mouth and distinctly wipes it off. Ruling: balk. Award R3 home and R1 second. The pitcher cannot bring his hand to his mouth because the pitcher is required to go to the set position without interruption and in one continuous motion. Situation Q. With a runner on first, Team A, a right-handed pitcher, is in the set position, bent at the waist, and his pitching arm naturally hangs down slightly in front or to the side away from his body. As he looks to the catcher for a signal, A, the pitcher's arm is stationary, or B, the pitching arm rocks slightly from side to side. Ruling: in A, the position of the arm is natural and can be considered by his side in meeting the rule. Any movement would then start the pitch. In B, any movement of the arm is considered the start of the pitching motion, and a pitch must be delivered to the plate, so this motion results in a balk. Pitcher as infielder. With R3 on third base and R1 on first, F1 legally steps off the pitcher's plate and feints to third and then steps and throws to first, attempting to pick off R1. The throw goes into dead ball territory. The offensive team's coach wants a balk to be called because the pitcher never threw the ball towards third. Ruling: when the pitcher stepped off the pitching plate in his feint to third, he became an infielder. Hence, when his throw goes into dead ball territory, all runners are awarded 2 bases. R3 gets home and R1 gets third. Had F1 stayed on the pitching plate during his feint to third and his throw to first, all runners would be awarded 1 base. R3 would get home and R1 would get second. This would not be a balk, as F1 made a legal feint and a legal pickoff attempt with no prior motion to the pitch. Pitching restrictions. Situation A. The coach of Team A has an ambidextrous pitcher and wants to know if the player can pitch the limitation from both left-handed and right-handed. Ruling: pitch limitations are up to apply to the player as an individual, not as a left-handed or right-handed pitcher. Situation B. F1 is a replacement relief pitcher. He attempts to pick off R1 from first base. The offensive team's coach realizes that F1 has exceeded his number of pitched innings per the state association pitching restriction and requests from the umpire-in-chief that his opponent forfeit the game. The defensive team argues that F1 has not thrown a pitch and therefore replaces him with a legal substitute. Ruling: the forfeit is not honored. F1's attempt to pick off R1 by definition is not considered to be a pitch. The defensive coach is allowed to replace him with an eligible pitcher. Comment: during the pregame conference, the coach of Team A tells the umpire that he is going to allow his best pitcher to throw many innings as necessary to ensure a win, or that he is authorizing the pitcher to pitch both games of the doubleheader since the pitcher's family and friends have traveled so far to see him pitch. Ruling: it is not an official's responsibility to determine if a team has violated a state association's pitching restriction policy. Limitations may vary from state to state. However, limitations are to ensure that the pitchers are not overused and that they have had a reasonable rest between pitching appearances. Infractions by the pitcher. Situation A. with no runners on base. F1 places his pitching hand on his mouth and distinctly wipes off his pitching hand prior to touching the ball. A. While not touching the pitcher's plate. B. While touching the pitcher's plate. Ruling. A. Legal. B. Illegal. And shall a ball be awarded to the batter's count. Situation B. With R1 at first, F1 places his pitching hand on his mouth and distinctly wipes off his pitching hand prior to touching the ball, A. While not touching the pitcher's plate, or B. While touching the pitcher's plate in the set position. Ruling. Legal in A. In B, the pitcher has balked and R1 is awarded second base. Situation C. The umpire notices F1, A, wearing an adhesive strip around his index finger on his pitching hand, or B, tape on the palm of his hand. Ruling. In A and B, this is illegal because contact with the ball would occur. There is no penalty. The tape shall be removed. Situation D. With R2 at second, F1 is not on the pitcher's plate. He goes to his mouth and goes directly to the ball with his pitching hand. A. F1 calls time and requests a new ball. Or B. F1 legally engages the pitcher's plate. Ruling. Legal in A. In B, time is called and the ball is added to the count. Situation A. F1 intentionally throws at B4 and is ejected from the contest. The opposing coach feels that S1 is only allowed 5 warm-up pitches. Ruling. Incorrect interpretation. S1 is allowed the same number of warm-up pitches, 8, as the pitching change was a result of an injury or inclement weather. Situation B. S1 replaces F1. How much time or how many throws are permitted for his warm-ups? Ruling. S1 is permitted 8 pitches completed in 1 minute. The umpire is authorized to allow more when the weather is inclement or F1 is removed because of injury and S1 did not have time to warm up before entering. Situation C. F1, who was a base runner in his half of the inning, is slow coming out to take his warm-up pitches. The umpire refuses to permit him warm-up, stating he used up his 1 minute allotted time. Ruling. The umpire is correct. The 1 minute time limit begins at the conclusion of the final out of the previous inning. However, in the above situation, the umpire should use good judgment in enforcing this rule. Situation D. With R2 on second base, F1 in the set position suddenly turns and makes a legal feint to F4 in an effort to drive F2 back to the base. Ruling. Even though the 20-second period may have elapsed during the play, there is no penalty. The count restarts once F1 returns to the position on the pitcher's plate. Situation D. With R2 on second base, F1 in the set position suddenly turns and makes a legal feint to F4 in an effort to drive back R2 to the base. Ruling. Even though the 20-second period may have elapsed during the play, there is no penalty. The count restarts once F1 returns to his position on the pitcher's plate. Situation E. Prior to the start of the third inning, starter F1 is A. Late in getting to the mound to take his warm-up throws, or B. Is replaced by a relief pitcher. Ruling. In A, the starter may take 5 warm-up throws if he can get them in within the 1 minute time limit. In B, the pitcher may take 8 warm-up throws. The 1 minute time limit at the start of each half inning begins at the conclusion of the final out of the previous half inning. Situation F. With R1 at first, F1, A, looks at the runner 4 or 5 times in an effort to hold him close and 20 seconds elapse. Or B, makes repeated throws to first base at about 10-second intervals in an effort to hold the runner. Ruling. In A, the umpire will call time and award a ball to B2's count. In B, this is legal. F1 must pitch or make a play or legal feint within 20-second time period. After such a play or feint, the 20-second count is restarted. Comment: this rule is intended to maintain the flow of the game with continuous action and to eliminate dead periods of inactivity. While it may be argued that the delay is still present if F1 makes the throw, action is continuing and there is still an element of risk for the defense of making an errant throw or committing a balk. Situation G. R1 is at first base and B2 is in the batter's box. F1 steps back off the pitcher's plate after having the ball for 18 seconds. Ruling: the pitcher is required to pitch or make an attempt or play, including a legal feint, within 20 seconds. Stepping backwards off the pitcher's plate can be considered part of a feint if the umpire's judgment there is an accompanying action. However, if this is not the case, the ball shall be credited to the batter. Situation A. With R3 on third and R1 on first, F1 stretches and comes set. He then swings his entire non-pivot foot behind the back edge of the pitcher's plate, steps towards second, and A. throws the ball to second in an attempt to retire R1, who is advancing there, or B. throws to second to drive back R1 to first, who has neither attempted or feinted in an advance to second. Ruling: in A, this is legal. In B, this is a balk. Situation B. With R1 on first, F1 attempts a pickoff while stepping at an angle, but to the home plate side. Ruling: balk. To comply with the requirement to step directly toward, F1 must step to the base side of a 45-degree angle between center of the pitcher's plate and between home and first base. Situation C. With R3 on third and R1 on first, F1 comes set. He then feints towards third, or he removes one hand from the ball and makes an arm motion towards third but does not step towards third. He follows with a throw to first base. Ruling: this is a balk. F1 must step towards third base when feinting there. F1 may not feint to first base. He must step toward the base and throw. He might, while he is on the plate, step toward an occupied third and feint a throw, and then turn and step towards first and throw there without disengaging the pitcher's plate. If F1 steps and feints to first, he must first disengage the pitcher's plate, or he is guilty of a balk. Situation D. With a runner or runners on base, F1 assumes the set position. He stretches his arms above his head. He brings them down together and pauses with the ball in both hands in front of the body, after which he A. separates the hands and then steps back off the pitcher's plate with the pivot foot, or B. steps back off the pitcher's plate while pivot foot and feints throw to unoccupied first. Ruling: in A, this is a balk. In B, this is legal. Situation E. With R2 on second base, F1 wheels and fakes a throw to second on a pickoff attempt. As R2 drives back to first base, F4 and F6 run into short center field as if chasing an errant throw. R2, seeing this, takes off for third base where he is thrown out by F1. Ruling: this is legal and not considered unsportsmanlike conduct. R2's base coach has the responsibility to keep R1 informed. F6. With R2 and R1 on second and first bases respectively, F1, who is a left-handed pitcher, is in the set position. He stretches and comes to a complete stop with the ball in his glove, completely below his chin in front of the body. He then lifts his entire non-pivot foot and swings it behind the perpendicular plane of the back edge of the pitcher's plate, and A, throws to F3 in an attempt to pick off R1, or B, continuing through, throws or feints a throw to second base. Ruling: this is a balk in A. Action in B is legal, provided the non-pivot foot movement was not interrupted nor stopped prior to the completion of the action. Situation G. R2 is on second and R1 is on first. After F1 comes set, he steps with his non-pivot foot, A, towards second, or B, towards first or home. He does not throw the ball. Ruling: in A, the act is legal. In B, F1 has committed a balk. Situation H. R3 is on third base. There are 2 outs, and B4 has a count of 3 and 2. While F1 is in motion, B4 requests timeout, which is not granted, and steps out of the batter's box with A, 1 foot, or B, both feet. F1 delivers the pitch that sails over F2's head. B4 advances to first while R3 scores. Ruling: in A and B, the run counts. B4 is charged with a strikeout and remains on first base. Since B4 did not intentionally try to cause F1 to balk or throw a wild pitch, the umpire shall not eject him. The ball remains live. Situation I. With R3 on third base, F1 starts his pitching motion and B2 requests time, but the umpire does not grant time. B2 steps out of the batter's box with his both feet, and A, F1 delivers a pitch, B, does not deliver the pitch, or C, throws a wild pitch. Ruling: A, the umpire shall call 2 strikes on B2, 1 on the pitch and 1 for stepping out of the box. In B, the umpire shall call a strike on B2 for stepping out of the batter's box. The balk is nullified. In C, 2 strikes shall be called on B2, 1 on the pitch and 1 for stepping out. The ball remains live. Situation J. With R1 on first base and 2 outs, F1 attempts to pick off R1. As F1 pivots to throw, he realizes that F3 is not on the base, but is in his normal defensive position. F1 completes the throw without interruption. The coach of the offensive team wants a balk called on F1. Ruling: as long as F3 is in the proximity of the base, F1 would not be guilty of a balk. Proximity is umpire judgment and is based on whether the fielder is close enough to the base to legitimately make a play on the runner. Comment A. There is a distinction between stepping off the pitcher's plate and stepping towards a base. Stepping off means that the pitcher has removed his pivot foot backwards from the plate and has become an infielder. Stepping toward indicates movement of the non-pivot foot towards a base. Comment B. How does an illegal pitch differ from a balk? A pitch is illegal if it does not conform to the requirements of the wind-up position or the requirements of the set position. An illegal pitch can occur with or without runners. If there is a runner, it is one type of a balk. If the pitch is illegal, there is no runner, a ball is awarded to the batter, whether or not it is pitched. A balk can only occur when there are runners. When a balk is called, it never includes the awarding of a ball in addition to an advance by the runner. As an example of differences with no runners, a quick pitch is an illegal pitch that is called a ball whether or not it goes through the strike zone. If there is a runner, a quick pitch is a balk. The ball is dead immediately when an illegal pitch is called. Situation A. With R1 at first, F1 in the stretch position steps quickly backwards off the pitcher's plate and with a motion much like his pitching delivery throws to the plate where A, B2 hits the throw, or B, R1 is thrown out stealing by F2 on a pitch out. Ruling: in A and B, it is a balk. F1, while he is not touching the pitcher's plate, shall not make any movement naturally associated with his pitch. Situation B. With R1 on first base, the umpire calls balk just as F1 delivers the pitch. B2 hits the ball over the outfield fence for a home run. Ruling: the ball becomes dead the moment the balk occurs. Therefore, B2 does not have the opportunity to hit the pitch in this case. R1 is awarded second base and B2 remains at the plate.